Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Give people a moment to get on here as we get started on the broadcast. I've missed a few weeks, took a few weeks off. I was traveling for business, and of course, we had the holidays in there. So it took a little time around Thanksgiving that weekend, but a couple weekends I missed. I was just out on business travel. I promise I was not ignoring you guys. And let me open up my comments area. So as you're coming on, drop in the chat where you might be streaming from or watching from. I always like to see where people are at. So let's get started. Good morning. My name is Dr. Jeff Evenson. I'm a board certified doctor of holistic health. I do not practice medicine. I don't pretend to practice medicine. I am not a medical doctor. Okay. Instead, I help people get their health back naturally, holistically. I work on mind, body, and spirit, and work on typically the chronic cases that people are dealing with, and the medical system is not helping them with. So, a majority of my clients that I work with have been doing this over 16 years. A majority of the clients I work with are ones that have been dealing with chronic health issues, and we work on getting them back. I always point out to people, I don't have an overnight solution for you. That's what the medical system promises, and we see how far that promise gets, right? Um, it doesn't go very far. You might get some temporary relief, but the solutions, the root cause of what caused those symptoms in the first place, are still there. They don't get addressed by covering them up with medication. They just don't. Okay. Um, so let's see here. All right. Anyway, throw in the chat as we get started where you're watching from. It's always fun to see where people are sitting and watching. And maybe you can't, maybe you're driving or something like that. But, I always, as the weekend comes up, well, let's talk about this morning. Here in northern Minnesota, where I'm at my homestead office, it was my temperature gauge on the wall over here showed minus 20 below zero, minus 20. So it's a little nipply out there, little nipper, and I've already been out in it because my dog likes to my dog Louie likes to have me throw the ball, and that's been our routine just about every morning since I've had him. Yesterday was Louie's birthday. He is now 7 years old, and I also consider the month of December Clyde's birth month as well. And Clyde, my cat, he's 21 years old. 21. It's hard to believe that I've had this cat for that long. And I'm really not a cat guy, but so I've got a good topic lined up. I always think about what should I talk about, and I take, I'm always looking at what my colleagues are posting about. I follow them and see what they're talking about. And the topic that it's a very frequent topic. It's the one on dealing with parasites. And so we're going to talk about parasites today. And I went back into my video archive over on my Rumble channel, where if you want to watch any of the previous shows, you can go back to Rumble and look at the Evenson Holistic channel. And I've got all the videos out there that I've done archived. Today is episode 77. But I looked through all the past episodes, and I've done 2 previous episodes on parasites, and the highest viewed episodes in my stream are dealing with parasites. So I thought I would bring it back. We're going to talk about it. I've got some good pictures I'll share. People always like to look at pictures and whatnot, but let's dive in. I wanted to, as I'm just going to pick up on my script. I always write out my script. I wanted to start today by sharing something I noticed. One, make sure you have your coffee, because you're going to want that. I step back and I looked at the data from the show when I review and which episodes get watched the most, which ones get shared, and which ones people come back to later. One topic consistently rises to the top, and that's dealing with parasites. And that's interesting to me because parasites are not a flashy topic. Okay, they're not trendy. They're not something that most people casually talk about at the dinner table. I do. If you go out, if you see me with a bunch of other holistic practitioners, most likely the topics at the dinner table are dealing with parasites and poop. Always. You can't have a conversation without talking about that kind of stuff. So it's kind of funny. But yet, when I speak on the subject, people lean in. Okay, everybody, and that tells me something important. Um, it tells me that a lot of people are quietly dealing with symptoms that don't fully resolve. And so, fatigue that never quite lifts. We might have digestive issues that come and go. There's sleep problems, anxiety, skin issues, cravings, brain fog. And somewhere deep down, they're wondering if there's more to the story than what they've been told. So today I want to bring this topic back, not to scare anyone and not to sensationalize it, and certainly not to suggest that parasites are the cause of everything. It's not. I would say out of my client load, it ebbs and flows a little bit, but I would say maybe 70% of my clients that I work with have parasites. So let's talk about why this subject keeps resurfacing and why it's so often missed, and what I see over and over again in my practice when we slow down and actually listen to the body. Because here's the truth: parasites are not rare, they are not just something that happens somewhere else. And they're rarely the only issue. They're usually part of a larger picture involving the immune system, the gut, the liver, the lymphatic system, and overall resilience. And what concerns me is not that people are learning about parasites. What concerns me is how many people jump straight into killing mode without understanding what the body is ready for. So, if this topic has caught your attention before, or if you've watched one of those episodes and thought, that sounds like me, then today's show is for you. Grab your coffee, take a breath, and let's talk about parasites in a grounded, practical way that actually honors the intelligence of the body. Hey, good morning, Darla. Good to see you on the show. There's other people watching. Jump on and comment where you're watching from. All right. So let's get into this first segment. Why parasites are more common than people think and why they're so often missed. Okay. One of the biggest misunderstandings about parasites is the idea that they're rare or only found in certain parts of the world. And that simply isn't true. Parasites exist everywhere. If you think about, I'm in Minnesota, which is a huge agricultural state, farming community. I grew up around farms and all that kind of stuff, and farmers are at least annually deworming their livestock from parasites, worms, and parasites. And when you think about, well, what are livestock? They're mammals. We deworm our dogs. What are dogs? Mammals. We deworm our cats. What are cats? They're mammals. What are human beings? Mammals. Parasites live everywhere. Okay, they always have. And while modern sanitation has reduced exposure, it hasn't eliminated it. And we live in a global food system now. And so our produce is shipped from all over the world. We travel, we eat out, we have pets, we swim in lakes and rivers, we drink water that's treated, not sterile. Exposure is not the exception, it's the norm. Now, that doesn't mean everyone is overrun with parasites, of course not. But it does mean the immune system is constantly doing its job, managing what comes in and keeping things in balance. And that's where the real issue lies, isn't it? In a healthy, resilient body, parasites may pass through or remain in check without causing obvious problems. But when the terrain becomes compromised, when the immune system is under stress, when digestion is weak, when our detox pathways are sluggish, that balance can shift. And here's why parasites are so often missed. Most people don't have textbook symptoms. They're not seeing worms. They're not dealing with dramatic acute illness. And instead, they experience low grade chronic issues that don't quite fit neatly into a diagnosis. And we're talking fatigue that doesn't respond to sleep, digestive issues that come and go, skin problems that flare and calm, mood changes, anxiety, cravings, brain fog. These are not symptoms that automatically trigger parasite testing in conventional care. They're often labeled as stress, aging, hormones, or just how your body is now. But from a holistic perspective, these are signs the body is adapting to something it's carrying. Another reason parasites are missed is testing. Many standard tests rely on stool samples, and parasites don't always show up on a single sample. They shed intermittently. Some hide. Some don't live primarily in the gut. See, that's a misconception that, oh, you have parasites, it must all be in your gut. No, they can leave your gut and they can migrate to any part of the inside of your body. They can go up into the brain, they can be in your heart, they can be in your liver, your pancreas, your spleen, your stomach, your eyes, your ovaries, your uterus, your penis, your vagina, um, testicles, meant to keep them grouped. Um, Anywhere in the body. So a negative test doesn't always mean absence. It means it wasn't detected in that moment. And that's why I don't start with assumptions. I don't start with protocols. I start with an assessment. I look at patterns. I look at the body as a whole system because parasites are rarely a standalone problem. They're a signal that something else in the system needs support. And that's the part of the conversation that often gets missed. Throw in the chat if you've had experience with parasites. All right. So we're going to talk on this next part the symptoms people rarely associate with parasites, okay, and why the body adapts instead of crashing. Um, it's it's an interesting. To me the whole topic is fascinating because I've dealt with parasites myself. Okay, shortly after I moved up north in 2019, I hit a period. I live alone up here, and before I moved up here, had access to other people who could muscle test me, who could quantum nutrition test me. Um, and but when I moved up here, it's usually never a good idea for a practitioner to test themselves because sometimes we're going to be too close to the problem. Okay, and I was doing that because I was living alone, and I just started crashing hard. I had no energy. No, I would sleep all night, wake up exhausted. Okay. And I'm pushing through the day. I'm still working with my clients at the time, and I'm pushing through the day. And it finally occurred to me, I think it was December, that I was clearly missing something when I'm doing my own testing. Okay. And so I called up a friend and colleague and asked him if he would take me on as one of his patients. And I asked him, I said, you have to treat me like one of your normal patients who doesn't know anything about the muscle testing and about the work that we do, because I just wanted someone else to take care of me because I knew I was missing something. And so I had to vow to myself that I would give him at least 1 year um, to, and I would follow his guidance to the T. Okay. Sometimes when practitioners work with other practitioners, at some point they start modifying their own program because they think they know better. And so I promised to follow his program for at least a year. Well, he tested me and he found parasites. Okay. And that started to explain a lot of the symptoms that I was having. The food cravings that I was having for sugar were intense. I remember Ben and Jerry's was my go-to food, and if I didn't have it in my freezer, I would go out and get Ben and Jerry's. And when I looked at my food journals for this before I got tested, I went through a period of 41 days in a row where I had a pint. I would eat the whole pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. It was like a drug, a fix. I couldn't get enough. That's how intense the food cravings can be with parasites. Okay. And so he put me on a protocol, and I started taking the protocol. And for me, it was 3 months before I started seeing an output of parasites. Okay, and that seemed like a long time. I was um, admittedly getting a little frustrated because I've seen other clients come in, days or weeks into their program, and they're already pooping out parasites. But as you can see in my background, my shadow box there, I'm a retired sailor, retired Navy. I did 20 years in the Navy, and I've been all over this globe. So who knows where I picked these parasites up at, okay? And how long they had been in my system, but I finally reached a point where my body was ready to deal with it, and I started dealing with it, and I started moving them out. And I'll tell you, folks, um, in the process, every time I would sit down on the toilet and poop them out, um, my energy would shift, and I would instantly feel just a little bit better. And for me, I consider myself an extreme case because it took me over 2 years to get rid of the parasites. Okay, and we're going to talk about why it's important to follow a protocol like that for even for as long as I did, because I during that whole time I had support in place for my body. My practitioner was aware of what my body needed to support this process. Okay, and the longest parasite that I moved out was over 6 feet. That's insane. Okay, I was curious, and yes, you have to go digging in. You have to go excavate. I'll show you pictures, not of mine, but the pictures that my clients send me when they're capturing these parasites, and they're all dead. You don't have to worry that you're. I can't think of anybody that has told me they've moved out live parasites, but I'm sure it's out there. But majority of the people I work with, they're all dead when they move out. So let's talk about the symptoms that people rarely associate with parasites. Okay, and when most people think of parasites, they think of extreme symptoms, dramatic digestive stress, obvious infections, something that's unmistakable. Okay. But that's not how it usually works. What I see far more often are bodies that adapt. The human body is incredibly intelligent, and when it's under a low grade chronic stressor, it doesn't always sound an alarm. Instead, it compensates. It reroutes energy because the body's always trying to stay in balance. It prioritizes survival over optimal function. And parasites often live in that gray zone. So let's talk about some of the symptoms that people rarely connect to parasites. One of the biggest is fatigue. Not the kind that improves with rest, but the kind that feels like your energy never fully comes back. That's what I was feeling. People wake up tired, they hit a wall in the afternoon, they rely on caffeine to get through the day. And from a holistic standpoint, parasites can contribute to this by competing for nutrients. They irritate the gut lining and they keep your immune system in a constant low grade state of activation. Another common one that I have seen multiple times in people is anxiety and irritability. This surprises people, but the gut and the nervous system are deeply connected. And when the gut is under stress, the nervous system feels it. And people describe feeling on edge, restless, or emotionally reactive without a clear reason. They're told it's psychological when in reality it's physiological. Okay. I'm thinking of one of my clients. She started a parasite protocol with me. And in the beginning, she was a really angry, negative, um, just kind of a hostile type attitude. And I love her dearly. She started the protocol, and within a week, she started moving parasites out right away. And within a week, her whole, it's like I was talking to an entirely different person. Okay. And she sent me a before picture of what she looked like and an after picture side by side. And the before picture looks like a person, if I was in a room full of people and I saw that person in that room, I would do everything to avoid that person because her energy just exuded, stay the fuck away from me. I don't like you. The other person, the new person that I was talking to, you could see complete shift in how her face, how she carried in her face. It was actually inviting. And she told me that people actually came up to her and asked her if she was okay because she was suddenly being nice and all that kind of stuff. And it's remarkable. Parasites can drive your whole mood. And I've experienced that, not to that degree. I kind of went the other way. I would get depressed and sullen and all that kind of stuff. Almost melancholy. It was all the time. Okay. So then there are the sleep disturbances, difficulty falling asleep. All right. Waking up between 1 and 3 in the morning, restless sleep, vivid dreams. The body does a lot of detoxification and immune activity at night. And if something is stressing that system, sleep is often the first place it shows up. And another thing, parasites tend to be most active at night. This is why a lot of times I'll when I put the timing of when the protocol should be taken, I have them take it before they go to bed because I know the parasites are most active at night, and they're also most active during full moons. And we also have known that they're active during new moon. So both the complete dark moon, which is the new moon, and then the full moon, both of those cycles can really rev up the activity. And you've heard, people who people act crazy over the full moon. Well, it could be because there's stuff inside their bodies. All right. The digestive symptoms are obvious, okay, but still often minimized. Bloating that comes and goes, there's gas, there's alternating constipation and loose stools, sensitivities to foods that used to be fine. I'm working with a client. When she started working with me, she could only eat 2 or 3 foods routinely. Anything else out of that norm would make her really sick. Okay. And once I got her on the protocol, she reached a point where she could start introducing foods, and now she's back up to eating almost completely normal, whatever she wants to eat. Okay. It's crazy. People are told that they have IBS, but no one asks why the gut is irritated in the first place. And I saw a presentation at one of the conferences I went to. The case study that was talked about had parasites in the gut. Okay, and this woman in the case study had a colonoscopy, um, and the results, the summary that was written up, showed nothing present that shouldn't be there. But in the very fine print, buried in there was presence of parasite noted. Okay, but that was ignored in this woman's case. I've had other stories where people will take a stool sample and actually put the actual parasite, you'll see what I'm talking about, in with the stool sample, and the sample comes back negative because the labs are taught to ignore that stuff. The medical system, in my opinion, doesn't want you to know about parasites. Because if you get rid of them, you actually get healthy again. There's skin issues. They're another big one. Rashes, itching, acne that doesn't respond to typical treatments. The skin is a detox organ, and when the body can't clear things internally, it often pushes them outward. Then there are cravings. I talked about this, especially for sugar and refined carbohydrates. Parasites thrive on sugar. So when I'm looking at food journals, I'm looking for things that have sugar in them. When people tell me they feel out of control around sweets, I don't assume a lack of willpower. I look at what might be driving that signal. And then finally, the brain fog, that's difficulty concentrating, memory lapses, feeling disconnected and mentally slow. That's where I felt. And when the immune system is chronically activated, the brain feels it. Now, here's the key point. None of these symptoms mean someone definitely has parasites. But taken together, they tell a story. They tell me the body is managing something it doesn't have the resources to fully resolve. And that's why so many people live in this state for years. They're not sick enough to get urgent answers, but they're not well enough to feel like themselves. The body adapts until it can't. And that's the point that I had reached when it's like something is wrong. I can't do this anymore. And so my job is to step in before that tipping point for people. And if you happen to be watching, throw in the chat where you're streaming from. Also, let me know if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them before the end of the show. All right, so let's talk about why parasite protocols must include drainage and why timing is critical. Okay. And this is where nuance matters because there's no one size fits all approach here. You'll hear me say that I don't start with killing parasites, and that's often true, but it's not a rule. Okay. It's a decision based on what the body is showing me in that moment. There are cases where we do address parasites right out of the gate. They'll test, boom, right there. Their body is absolutely ready. But when we do, the protocol is never just about killing. It always includes drainage and detox support alongside it. Because removal without drainage is a setup to overwhelm the body. Because when parasites die, they release waste. That waste has to move through the liver, the lymphatic system, the gut, and out of the body. And if those pathways aren't supported, symptoms are going to flare. And people feel worse. You might feel a little fluish because you're over toxic at this point. And it's not because the approach is wrong, but because the body doesn't have enough capacity yet. And that's why drainage is not optional in my work, it's foundational. So let's talk about timing, because it's another place where people get tripped up. Not every person presents with parasites as the primary stressor in the beginning. Sometimes sometimes the body has bigger priorities. It may need detox support first. It may need help clearing environmental stressors. It may need to calm inflammation or stabilize digestion. So we start there. And then something interesting happens. As the body becomes stronger, as those pathways open and systems stabilize, the picture changes. What wasn't showing before begins to surface. And that's often where parasites begin to show up as the priority. Your body will shift. That's what I love about quantum nutrition testing is it is a process that will tell me the body that allows the body to tell me every step of the way what it needs for support. The body will guide me through the healing that it's ready to do. And it doesn't mean that the parasites weren't there before. It means the body wasn't ready to address them yet. So the body works in layers. It reveals what it's ready to resolve, not everything at once. And that's why an assessment matters. It's why I don't follow rigid protocols, and it's why two people with similar symptoms may start in completely different places. Some people begin with parasites and drainage together. Some people begin with detox and clearing first. Some people don't address parasites until later in the process. Each case is different. And when we respect that timing, the body responds far more gracefully. So, I thought there was something else I was going to mention at this point. Hmm, can't think of it. So, here's how I approach parasites in practice. And, well, ready for some show and tell? Let's look at some parasite pictures. Okay. I'm going to throw that up on the scene. All right. So, this one was from a young woman. The parasites were up in her sinus cavities. Okay. And she started sending me pictures of this. This is clearly a parasite. When they're up in there, could be a larva stage, something like that. But she was constantly blowing them out of her nose once her body was ready to let them go. Okay, pretty gross. Some of these are going to get really gross. So if you're grossed out by this kind of stuff, then don't look. Um, but here's the next one. This is one a woman had pulled out of the toilet and pretty gross. It's a lot of, you're going to hear the medical system call this mucoid plaque. There's a lot of mucoid plaque, but I can guarantee you inside of that stuff that came out inside of that is all parasite type um, worms and pieces and bits and all that kind of stuff. Uh, it can be pretty gross. It's going to get worse here. Here we go. This one was um, a medical professional that I was helping with parasites, and she started moving them out. Of course, she's got the rubber gloves, and she's diving in to take a look and pull this stuff out. This is stuff that she is pooping out of her body. And you'll hear me say the phrase over and over, better out than in, anytime we're doing parasite protocols. You don't want this stuff inside your gut. Okay. So this is mucoid plaque and stool and parasite all wrapped up in together. The stool does a great job at hiding some of this. And this is why I encourage my clients to be ready to dive in and dig apart the stool. Sometimes they're hiding inside it and you won't see them. And some people get really grossed out about that. But I tell you what, I had an older lady, she looked at me emphatically and she says, Jeff, I am not digging in my stools. She was in her 60s. And then she came in one time with her daughter and her daughter's like, tell him. And she goes, well, I saw something sticking out of one of my stools, so I had to see what it is. And she's like, you're right, they're in there. And after she got past that first stage, she would routinely go in and explore to see what might be in the stool. That is the only way, folks, that you're going to know sometimes if they're in there. Sometimes it's very obvious. Okay. It'll look like this in the stool. or in the toilet rather. And they're pretty gross that this stuff is inside you and at one time was alive. Okay. Here's more. She's stool is all caked in around it, but it ties all of the clumps together. You can see pretty gross. Anybody grossed out yet? Post in the comments. More, and then some of the itchy skin right there. Um, every time she would get stressed with something, this area of her body would flare up like that, and that is routinely, in her case, was parasites. Same thing here, right up under her armpit. You know, pretty crazy how it goes. And then here's another one from the nose. Excuse me, from the nose. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff that's in there. All right. So we're done showing. If you looked away, you can look back at the screen. All right. So when someone, this is how I approach parasites in my practice and why the body is always going to lead. All right. So when someone comes into my practice, I'm not looking to match them to a protocol. I'm listening for a pattern. Hey, Brittany, thanks for posting. Yeah, you're right. The doctors dismiss it. Where are you watching from, Brittany? If you don't mind sharing. Okay, so I want to know. I always do an assessment first. Okay, whenever I'm working with new people, I always do an assessment first. I want to know what the body is prioritizing right now, not what I think it should be addressing based on the symptoms or the trends. Okay, the body has an order of operations. Graston, all right, Brittany, thank you. Graston, Minnesota. It's probably really cold up there, like it is here. The body has an order of operations, and when we follow it, healing tends to unfold with far less resistance. Okay. Sometimes parasites show up immediately, and when they do, we address them, but always in a way that supports drainage and detox at the same time. The goal is never to overwhelm the system, it's to help the body move what it's ready to release. Now, other times, parasites don't present at all in the beginning. And instead, the body asks for support with detoxification, immune regulation, or clearing deeper layers of stress. And so we follow that lead. And often, once those pathways are supported and the terrain improves, parasites rise to the surface as the next priority. And it's not random, it's intelligent. The body doesn't ignore problems, it sequences them. That's why I don't promise quick fixes. I don't rush timelines, and I don't force protocols. Healing is a conversation with your body, it's not a battle. And oftentimes I tell people, I do not have an overnight solution for you. It will take time. The parasites didn't suddenly push your body over the edge overnight. It took a period of time. It's also going to take a period of time to unwind all that shit that they've done to you. But we're going to do it in such a way that your body is supported and we get all of the life cycles of the parasites. Okay, you got to remember, parasites are living creatures. They start from eggs, they go to a larva, and then the adult stage. And when adults are present in the body, the eggs go dormant. And so that's why some people, when they're pooping parasites out, they'll have a period of time where they poop out parasites. Okay, no more adults, but now the next batch is going to hatch. Okay, but the cool thing is, a lot of times about the protocol is we go after all of those life cycles, not just one. What I want people to understand is this: parasites are rarely the whole story. They're part of a larger picture involving terrain, resilience, and capacity. And when the body is supported properly, it becomes much more efficient at restoring balance. It takes time, okay? But that's the shift I help people make. From chasing symptoms to understanding patterns, from forcing change to partnering with the body. And that's where real, lasting progress happens. So, another part of this topic is why medication often makes people feel worse in these cases. Because I get the question all the time, well, can't I just take a medication? Well, you could, but that focuses only on the killing and it typically does not support the body, as we've been talking about in this episode. If you came in late, please go back and listen to the whole discussion about why it's so important to support the body. And oftentimes, the medication um, doesn't go after all the life cycle, all the stages of the parasite. So this is a good moment to explain why I don't default to a medication-based approach when it comes to parasites. Well, one, I'm not a medical doctor and I can't prescribe medications. And I can't tell you what to do or not do with medications. Okay? But it doesn't mean medications don't have a place. They absolutely do. But in many of the people that I see, medications end up exacerbating how the person feels rather than restoring balance. And here's why. Most antiparasitic medications are designed to kill aggressively. They don't account for the individual's drainage capacity, liver function, lymphatic movement, or the nervous system state. They focus on eradication, not integration. Okay? So what happens? Well, the parasites die quickly. Waste is released rapidly, and the body is suddenly flooded with toxins that it cannot clear efficiently. And people feel worse. Their headaches intensify, fatigue deepens, anxiety spikes, digestive symptoms flare, your skin reacts. From the outside, it can look like treatment failure. From the inside, it's often a capacity issue. The medication did what it was designed to do. The body just wasn't supported in handling the aftermath. And another issue is that medications don't address terrain. They don't rebuild digestive strength, they don't improve immune resilience, and they don't support the detox pathways. So even if parasites are reduced, the environment that allowed them to thrive remains unchanged. And when the terrain doesn't change, problems tend to return, sometimes in different forms. That's why my approach is different. I'm not opposed to addressing parasites directly. I'm opposed to overwhelming the body. I want the system to be supported, resilient, and capable of processing what's being released. And when we work with the body instead of against it, people tend to move through the process with far less distress and far better outcomes. So, listening to the body and knowing when to reach out is a big question. I want to leave you with this thought, okay? If parasite conversations keep catching your attention, that's worth paying attention to. The body communicates long before it breaks down. It whispers before it shouts. Parasites are not something to panic about. It just isn't. They're not a label. They're not a diagnosis. They're simply one possible piece of a much larger picture. And what matters most is not whether you have parasites, but whether your body has the support it needs to deal with whatever it's carrying. If you've been dealing with symptoms that don't fully resolve, if you've tried things that helped a little but never quite got you back to feeling like yourself, that's usually a sign there's more going on beneath the surface. And guessing your way through it rarely leads to clarity. That's why assessment matters. When you reach out to me, we're not jumping straight into protocols. I don't put you on a supplement program. I put you on a transformative natural health improvement program, because along the way, you're going to get health coaching, holistic lifestyle coaching. You're going to get some mentorship, some accountability, some guidance, education. I don't just put a program together and say, here you go, good luck, see you in a month or two. That's what we're all used to. I work with people. If I take a new client on, I work with that person once a week in my phase 1 program, once a week for 3 months, because the body can shift that quickly, and it's important we have check-in points along the way. We're going to have that conversation. I'm looking at patterns. I'm listening to what your body is actually asking for in the order it's ready to address it. Some people need to start with detox and drainage. Some need immune or digestive support. Some are ready to address parasites right away. Many move through several layers over time, and there's no one right starting point. There is only the right starting point for you. So if this topic resonated, if it felt familiar, or if it brought up questions you haven't been able to get answered elsewhere, that's a good reason to reach out. You don't have to figure this out on your own, and you don't have to push your body into something it's not ready for. You just have to be willing to listen. So thanks for spending your morning with me on this. Now, I'm going to wrap up a little early, it looks like. That's good. Before I wrap up, I want to share this. My current 2025 rates are available through December 31st. So if you're thinking about starting a program, I would encourage you to start now. You can start with 2025 rates. My current rates are available through December 31st. After that, pricing is going to change. Okay? So if today's conversation connected for you, I'd encourage you to reach out before the end of the year. I'm also going to run my special on the Q&T quantum nutrition testing full assessments with the coupon code Health Truth in all capital letters. I'm going to put that word in the comments so you can just copy and paste it. Boom, there it comes. All right. This will save you $200, making the cost only $150. This is good now and will come down at year end as well. That meaning that I'll pull that special off by the end of the year. Now, I'm going to address this one right off the top. A lot of people think that the holidays are a bad time to start. In reality, it's often the best time to build support before stress, travel, and indulgence takes their toll. Why do you think people start New Year's resolutions? Because they've been since Halloween. You got Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, all indulgent type holidays, all involving sugar. Some of them involve overeating, gorging themselves. You feel like crap. Don't wait. Start now. Lock in 2025 prices. Okay, that that indulgence can have a toll, I think, on how you feel. But let's get started. Don't wait. Let's get after it. I have openings. Get on my calendar for next week. Okay, use that code. Oh, you probably want to know where. Well, you can go to my website, evensonholistic.com. Let me just put the link up there. I'll do that for you. Let's see. Copy link address. I'll put it here, but you can. Well, I'm just going to put my website link in there. Right in the middle of the website, when you go to my website, is a button. Right, you can't miss it. The button says "Start Your Journey." Thank you, Amy. I appreciate it. Um, Start your journey. Okay, you won't regret it. Whether we're going to deal with parasites or we're going to deal with some other chronic health challenges that you have, I never assume that somebody's going to have parasites. And I never assume when someone walks in with a medical diagnosis that I'm going to find things to support that diagnosis either. I start clean and fresh with your whole health history. We're going to look at the whole story of you. We're going to walk through it together. And I'm been doing this long enough. I listen well, and I can usually hear things that will draw my attention to ask other questions. It's like a puzzle, and I'm really good at putting these kind of puzzles together for people. This is where my passion is. You can get me going on this subject for all morning, all day. I can talk holistic health. Once you get me in the groove, you may have to say, give me the hook to pull me off stage. I can talk about this stuff all day because it matters. It matters when I see people come in, they can hardly lift their heads and look at me. They don't have any energy. And it doesn't take an empath or an intuitive person like I am to see that there's problems here. But what I love is when after they start a program with me and they come in, whether it's in person or in telehealth, I can see the energy coming back into their life, into their life. You can see it in their face. The lights are coming back on, and they're starting to carry themselves with a little more assuredness and confidence because it's like, whoa, things are starting to look up. And I love that. I can't count the number of times that I have seen that happen year after year after year doing this work. So think about it. Jump in before the end of the year. You're going to lock in 2025 prices. Prices are going up 2026. I think we've seen prices go up just about everywhere. Sadly, this industry is not immune to that either. So let's close with a prayer. I'm going to just scan the comments here and make sure there aren't any questions out there. Okay. All right. So let's close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the wisdom you placed within the human body, for its ability to adapt, to communicate, and to seek balance when given the right support. I ask that you guide each person listening today with discernment. Help them to hear what their own body is asking for without fear and without confusion. Bring clarity where there has been frustration and peace where there has been uncertainty. Grant us patience with the healing process, wisdom to choose the right steps at the right time, and humility to work with the body rather than against it. May those who are struggling feel encouraged, not overwhelmed. May they know they are not broken and that healing often unfolds layer by layer. I place this work, this conversation, and every person listening into your hands. May it serve their health, their peace, and their well being. In Jesus' name, amen. So that's all I have for you, folks. If you're in Minnesota, stay warm. Holy buckets, is it cold out there? Minus 20, at least where I'm living. It might be, the sun's out now, so it might be minus 19. Huh. But we've got some kind of Arctic air blowing through. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I will do my best to answer them. And you can direct message me on my personal, follow me on my personal profile, Jeff Evenson. That's where I'm posting daily content about health topics and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to friend me. You can follow me, you know, um, and you'll get to see that fresh content that I'm posting out there on Facebook. I'm also out on X, and I Instagram, of course. The and I've been streaming to YouTube. I haven't gotten any community flags on my content yet, and whatnot. Hey, Louie, you coming to say hi? Come here, come here, come here, up, come here. Yep. Oh, so this is Louie, my buddy. Yesterday, it was his birthday. Ha. Oh goodness, he was napping as I was talking the show, but he hears me wrapping it up, so he knows we're coming to an end. So on that note, folks, love you guys. We'll talk to you later. Oh.